Howdy. Today is November 3rd, Friday, 2023. And let's flip this around so... Are we flipping? There we go. So I've got some news, an update, kind of crucial update to where things are at now. I have a preliminary oncology report came in this week and confirmed that a diagnosis of adenocarcinoma of the rectum. In case you missed it, there's a 4 centimeter mass 15 to 20 centimeters into the rectum. There is, adjacent to that, there is a lymph node that has a 1.3 centimeter mass. And I say preliminary because once they determined that it was adenocarcinoma, which is the most common form of cancer in the body, they sent it out to test what category of this cancer, which will determine what the treatment options will be. So there's two categories. One is the more common, and one is the more the least likely. But the least likely is the one that I'm holding out hope for, because that one can be treated with immunotherapy drugs, and the other one will be treated with chemo, followed by radiation, followed by surgery if necessary. And that one would require a PICC line or a port being put in my chest. So for the duration of the treatment, they have me on the schedule either way for the infusions to start December 5th. There'll be a doctor's appointment next on the 15th with a new oncologist, because part of the news here is I actually had, after listening to what this specific oncologist that's been my quote-unquote oncologist for the past year and has dropped the ball 5 times, after listening to what he had to say, I had to ask to have my case transferred to another doctor. And so I haven't met or know who that doctor is going to be, but there's an appointment scheduled for the 15th of December. I still have, I call all these, me coming to LA and doing all these tests and doctors and everything, I call it Dr. Palooza. And it was only supposed to be 6 to begin with, but I think we're over 10 at this point, given the outcome and the results of those tests. I have one more outstanding. I have an MRI on scheduled for the 7th if I can't get it anytime sooner. But there's a board of all the doctors that have anything to do with my case that will be meeting virtually on Tuesday afternoon or evening, I hope, because that's my MRI is scheduled for 3 o'clock, and I want them to have all the tools and all the toys to figure this out. So I reactivated my Davidswonderfund to raise funds in the event of it being that more common version of rectal cancer, which would require me to get either a PICC line or a port, which means I would have to get get an apartment somewhere, hopefully within 10 miles of the hospital, for the duration, the 3 months or 18 weeks of either the immunotherapy or the chemo. If it's immunotherapy, that would be it. That would be the entire course of the treatment, barring the unforeseen. If it's the chemo, it would be, the standard of care is for it to be followed up with a course of radiation, and after that, assessment made as to whether or not there's to be any surgery. And even then, this surgery will depend will determine what outcomes there are. All of it is supposed to be, whatever it is supposed to be curable. But if in the event of the surgery, there's these two nerves that control your sphincter, and if they can save them, then the recovery time would be 2 to 3 months. And if they can't, then I'd be looking at having an ostomy bag for the rest of my life. So obviously you can guess what I'm hoping for, an immunotherapy solution that doesn't require any more invasive procedures or treatments. So that's what we want to focus on. Let's see. As you can tell, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it makes it a little more complicated given that I don't have all the information. But let's see. So if it's the chemo, radiation, and surgery option, we're looking at the next 6 months of treatment and recovery. So that would mean having to have a place for 6 months. And right now I'm collecting about $1,250 a month for disability, which is magnificent, and $200 in food stamps. Which is wonderful. It's way more than I used to average on the boardwalk, working 7 days a week for 30 years. But it's not enough given this is LA. I mean, I would ideally need to get an apartment that has a bathtub so that I can soak, because I found the last go round that being able to soak, it does two things. It helps absorb whatever the chemical is they're squirting in me, and the other is it really helps with the side effects, mitigating the side effects. So being able to soak every day for a couple hours is kind of crucial. So having a bathtub, an apartment with a bathtub where I can keep myself clean, keep the PICC line clean if that's what the options are. I've got to, err on the side of caution and prepare for that. So that's why I've reactivated this Davidswonderfund GoFundMe campaign, and I can also accept PayPal, of course, DAE English, at DAE English. I can accept Zelle, DAEnglish at Gmail. I can accept Venmo and Cash App. I'll be posting all that info at on this down in the notes. And so, as I said, there's a lot of moving parts here, and we don't have all the information. But for those of you who received an email or text from me before you've heard about all this, what's going on, the turn that everything has taken, saying that there was a blood test. I was a sample. I mean, I was part of a study for the past 2 years in the efficacy of this blood test for cancer, and so after or before every infusion, and then every few months or so, I would do a blood test, and they would. When I first got diagnosed, the second time I got the cancer, with the biopsy tissue, they actually sequenced the DNA of the cancer itself, and then looked for those genetic markers in my blood. And that test was able to tell us that I had been cancer-free since the first week after the first infusion of the immunotherapy drug that I'm hoping that we get to do again. So I'm a believer. It turns out that those results that came back from the last time I did that test on August 25th, apparently they were made available to this oncologist on September 6th. And I didn't learn about those results until a month or so after, when I texted him to find out if those results had come back. And his plan was not to tell me the results until our next appointment, which was this week. So that for me was kind of the last straw, because had been at least 4 other instances in my care in the past year, that since this person came onto my case, that he basically just dropped the ball. And as far as I'm concerned, when I pushed last spring to have this test, he pushed back and dragged his feet. And if we had done all these tests last spring, when the PET scan showed that there was an area of interest in a 9.4 uptake in the radioactive isotope that they shoot in you for a PET scan, which is indicative of something as serious as cancer, and those results came out the first night after the PET scan was done on April 24th. That if he had done his due diligence and been on top of the case, we would have been able to do all of this and the last spring, and we'd be talking about this being a precancerous, which is stage 0, instead of stage 2 to 3 right now, because we've lost 6 months in trying to stop the spread of this to all these other tissues. And but unfortunately that was only number 2. There was 3 other instances I'm not going to bother even to go into, because it's like pointless now, but I certainly felt justified in trying to find somebody else that had was on the ball for my case and saw it as a priority. And the fact that this was supposedly my oncologist was, going forward, you kind of need to know that the person that's poisoning you to death to save your life is somebody that you can trust and has your back and is more concerned about your case than they are about saving their ass. So that's the last I hopefully will say about it. So my case has been reassigned to the next available oncologist. I haven't met that person, talked to them or anything, and our first scheduled meeting is November 15th. So that's what's up with that. So this blood test, apparently the study that I was a part of was ended last spring, and so now it's sort of there's been some questions as to whether or not it could be even used again with a different type of cancer. because in order to do it, you need a sample of the tissue of the new cancer site. And as it turns out, I found out today, because since I found out that all this stuff was going down the way it's going down, I, got in touch with the company that's doing the test. And the test, unfortunately, it's not FDA approved yet. It's in trial phase, and so it's not quote unquote standard of care. And there are a lot of doctors that don't want to do anything that isn't quote unquote standard of care by the recommended standard of care according to the American Medical Association. And that's been problematic. For instance, because the pathology department, unless I'm in a study, they're not willing to release the tissues to any doctor in the system that would want it to go to Natera so we could continue doing the testing. I was told this week. So I called the company the other day, and again today I went through 6 conversations on this topic, and finally got a hold of somebody who put my name on a list for an extension of the study to include people that have had 2 cancers and 2 different cancer sites and 2 different cancers. And I feel like I'm kind of the poster boy for who they'd be looking for, because they already have all my data from the first go round, and we already have the biopsy for the second cancer site, the most recent cancer site. So all it's a matter of that pathology department at UCLA Harbor to send it over to Natera, and we're back in business. They'll sequence the DNA, and then we'll start drawing blood and applying it to the new cancer, the adenocarcinoma. So I'm encouraged by the conversation that I had that if it's possible, it's going to happen. They'll be in touch with me, and I'll let you know. The reason I make such a big deal about this is because it's proved to be so accurate. Yes, it said that there was no cancer, but it was in August. But that's because it was only designed to test for one type of cancer. They can only test for one cancer at a time, and it's the cancer that they've already sequenced the DNA of. So they sequenced the DNA of the squamous cell carcinoma, and they've been testing for that all this time. And so the good news is that whatever's going on right now, it's not metastasized from the original cancer. It's a completely new cancer. And unfortunately, the downside of it is that this cancer, this adenocarcinoma, when you Google it, you go on this site that tells you what the treatment options, what the causes are, and all that kind of stuff. When you go down to the causes, what it says is 3 causes for adenocarcinoma in the rectum. And that is tobacco smoking, exposure to toxic chemicals, and radiation exposure. So I've never smoked tobacco. Who hasn't been exposed to toxic chemicals? And I was treated with 2,600 units of radiation in the first in 2020. The last time in March 17th of 2020. And, on top of that, we have these little things called cell phones. So, yeah, is that a cause? Is that a possible cause? Who knows? But I have a feeling, that the main suspect would be radiation exposure. And most likely from that, possibly both causes, both the fact that I got those 2,600 units and that I was continually exposed to radiation through these cell phones. So the average person would probably not have an issue, but you add another 2,600 units of pretty powerful radiation to the mix, and it changes the equation, I would guess. So saying all that to say, I have a little problem with the standard of quick care that's being offered for to follow up with the chemo, because in essence it's a catch-22, because you're trying to treat me with radiation when radiation is most likely the cause of this friggin' cancer. So that's why one among many reasons why we're hoping and praying for it to be these results to come back and say that the immunotherapy will be the treatment and the solution to this. It's the least invasive. It's only one treatment. Six infusions, same as the chemo, but that would be all. And on top of that, I one of the things that happened this week is I went into this meeting with this oncologist, trying to get them to at least, given the fact that within sometime earlier in the week I started to feel sensations that weren't necessarily directly related to that cancer site in the rectum. And I know from having had a biopsy in the past that sometimes, they basically, they stick a needle in it, or they grab, they cut the tumor to get a sample, and that accelerates the cancer growth. It can accelerate the cancer growth, and it did the last time, and it feels like that's what's happened. And so when I started to feel sensations in other parts, other tissues in the region, but not necessarily directly related in the past to this cancer site in the rectum, I was like, right now my priority is to stop the spread as soon as possible, and I would be willing to sign anything to get another shot of another infusion, another 200 milligrams of the Keytruda Pembro immunotherapy drug that I had the last time. And their concern was the side effects. They said, you were really lucky, you're a miracle, but most people are not that lucky, because you had only a mild fatigue as a side effect, but the other side effects that some of the other people report can be fatal, and we don't want to create more problems for ourselves. And they're basically they have to stick to their standard of care. When the science says they're not into going on hunches at this point. That said, and heard and dealt with and accepted, I've decided to go ahead and with doing 2 more courses of the Rick Simpson oil protocol. This protocol calls for 60 grams of full spectrum THC CBD in over 3 months. But recently I've discovered that you can do the whole thing in 2 weeks and have an even more profound outcome. So I tried that with what I had. It wasn't the best, but it was a trial run for now I know how to do this thing. And so I ordered from a friend of mine who's volunteered to make this for me. I've ordered 2 courses, so 120 grams, so that once I get through the first one, and I want to keep going, so that there's no not allowing the cancer to do a rebound on us. So given the fact that I have until December 5th before we start the infusions, that's plenty of time for me to do what I can do with the RSO. So that's my plan. At the same time, I've started monitoring and my alkalinity again. About to start up the 10,000, the protocol for vitamin C, 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, and I've actually started eating those apricot seeds too, which is supposed to be somewhat toxic, but at the same time if you don't take more than 3, you should be okay. But the chemical in that is supposed to slow the spread of cancer cells, slow cancer cell growth. So we'll see what happens to that. I'm guinea pigging myself right now with it. And, you know, whatever else sounds that I haven't done before, because everything that I did in the first go round before I started treatment, none of it stopped the cancer. It got me healthy, but it didn't. None of it stopped the spread of the cancer. Cancer just kept growing on at its own pace. So, you know, everything from ozone therapy to the Rife machines and you name urine therapy. Yeah, I've heard it all, and I've done most of it if it made any kind of fucking sense. And I want to reiterate something that, you know, often it's been my experience, unfortunately, that there are people, when they hear that you're dealing with something like cancer, I don't know what it is. Somehow they think that that means that you're open to hearing whatever the hell it is that they have to say about it. And, you know, that they have the answer, and, you know, they read something, or they know somebody that read something, and they swear by it, because I guess, you know, they think that if they had that diagnosis, that would be the first thing that they would go and do. And that's cool. But I got to tell you, it's not really compassionate for people to just start unloading their addict of all their grandma's cancer remedies. First of all, there's an assumption that you don't already know. And if, like me, it's not only that you know, but you know from experience it's not applicable, right? It's just please don't do that. Secondly, if a person you know, gets the gumption up to share what their journey with the world, kind of, you know, do them a favor and just, you know, ask before you start spewing your opinion. You know, there's a subset of all that of people that just assume that you did something wrong and you're being punished or something, you know, and they it's very condescending. It's, you know, you don't foist your whatever your religious trip is or spiritual trip is on another person, and assume that they're not already, quote unquote, right with God or right with Jesus or right with, you know, the door handle or whatever it is, you know, whatever their belief system is, that's what's going to get them through. And we want to support one another and not tear one another down. And so I'm just giving this guidance because, you know, it's already started happening again. You know, people trying to tell me what to do. And I'll give you an example. Last week, when I first posted, you know, the notice that I was reactivating my GoFundMe thing and why, and that the cancer was back and so forth, in the comments, 2 people told me about fenbendazole, right? And that it was, you got to check this out, brother. This is the bomb, and blah blah blah. You know, without any knowledge that I'd done fenbendazole for friggin' 2 months every day for 60 days, and found that it had absolutely no effect on the cancer that I had. You know, cancers are they're not only unique to the person, but, you know, every case is different, man. Even if 2 people that have brain cancer, it's not the same brain cancer. There's a slew of different brain cancers, right? There's a slew of different colon cancers. And for you to just suddenly assume, because somebody says they have colon cancer or a variant of colon cancer, whatever it is, for you to assume that they don't know what the options are, and that, you know, the particulars of their own case, and you're suddenly going to, like, you know, lay down the answer to all the panacea to all illnesses, that you are the only unique person that, no, I mean, you know, it's just arrogant, and it's not compassionate, it's not welcome, and you're not helping anybody but yourself. to get that sense that you did something, because you can't stand to face the truth, which is this person that you knew is facing mortality, right? Is facing the possibility of their imminent demise, their death. And whatever your relationship with that's between you and you, right? And why work that out on a person who's in the cockpit, who's facing the situation as best they can, any way they can, because there's no other option. There's no plan B. This is what's up. So I sound a little passionate about it because I've heard it, I've seen it, I've experienced it, and it's a drag. And I've recognized that I got less of it when I spoke up in the beginning and said to people, at least the last time, I said, please can we stop doing that? So please can we stop doing that? Check yourself before you start checking other people. Make sure that you're coming from the right place. Because there's a point where helping isn't helping. We all know that. And like in Rainbow, we have this thing we call Shaunasina, right? It means the peace seers, the ones who see the way to peace in all situations. And it's kind of like neighborhood watch, we're all Shaunasina. And the point of it is, when there's a call for Shaunasina, if there's an issue in the woods where somebody is in peril or needs help or whatever it is, they call out Shaunasina. And anybody that responds knows that before you respond, you have to calm yourself so that when you arrive on the scene, that you are coming from a place of peace, so that you can bring peace to the situation. Because you want to make sure that you're really truly helping. Because sometimes all that's needed is to bear witness. More often than not, it's just bear witness. Like with George Floyd. If that girl hadn't turned on her phone and just did nothing but observe, witness that, the world would have never known what happened with George Floyd. So I use that. I mean, it's kind of drastic, but it's kind of the same thing. Just calm. We all need calm, and we all need peace. And nobody ever died of having too much peace in their heart, or having too much compassion in their heart. So I just I appreciate you listening and hearing that and sharing that with people, because beyond this case, but just in general, check yourself before you start issuing advice to someone who's in the cockpit. So there's that. So you see this ocean we're looking at here. One of the best things I'm going to get into. I want to swing over to some of the upsides of things, the good news that's come through, right? My weight is stabilized around 180, 182, something like that. So, which is really close to my college playing weight, and I'm digging it. The ocean we're looking at here, I got to say, I've been one of the best things that's been here for me in going through this past 2 weeks of all this Dr. Palooza, I call it, is going for a dip every day in the morning or the afternoon after, if it's I need another one. The water is, I gotta say, I've been swimming out past the break and just floating till I lose time, and the water is a perfect friggin' temperature. It's a perfect cold. It's not too warm. And, I want that bracing. I want that shock, because it turns out that it triggers your liver to secrete all this stuff that is anti-cancer. Cancer cells hate that shit. So I'm all about it. And the colder, the better. The more shocking, the better at this point. That's working for me. So I laughed at myself yesterday. I was walking up from out of the ocean, and I realized I've now become that graybeard guy you see going in the ocean in November. I'm him, he is me, we are one. So I'm I'm gonna call that it for now, and I'm gonna post the David's Wonderfund stuff, and I should probably say one more thing. When you go to the Wonderfund site on GoFundMe, what you're going to see is it says something like $16,000 collected so far, or $17,000. That's what was collected in the first, from the first go round up until when I activated it last week. When I activated it last week, there was $16,004. And all that money was dedicated to and collected so that I could get the van where I'm in right now. After I, finished the treatment. And, it was a long journey to get that together. And I actually had to switch them out at Christmas time and get another one. But I used the money, all that money went into what it was designed to do. So now we're starting. So when you see that number, subtract $16,000, because that's already been spent, some of it a couple of years ago, to get the vans. So we're moving forward with that. No amount is too small or too great. The whole point of it is that if I have to get the PICC line, I'm going to need a really hygienic place. I can't stay in the van anymore. And for the recovery time, we're looking at the next 6 months. So I've asked for about $22,000 for a place, preferably on the west side of LA, within 10 miles of ideally, Venice would be my first choice. The Redondo would probably be the second. The beach cities, Manhattan Beach. Rents start at around $2,000 there right now, $2,000 and $2,500. With first and last and all that kind of stuff. It's just it's more than I can think of. So that's why I've asked for enough for 6 to 8 months, barring in the erring on the side of caution, in case there's some sort of hiccup and I whatever. I don't want to even speculate. My main focus is that this is going to be a cancer that can be treated with immunotherapy. That's what we're focusing on. I'll know next week, and I'll let you know. So for now, that's it. Let me flip this around. There we go. Whew. I had to do this again. I went almost all the way through this video, and the phone overheated. So this is and I posted a short 5-minute version of this on Instagram. And I'm gonna do another little thing where it's all typed out. I already shot the video part for that. And that will be a minute or a minute and a half or whatever. So that's all the news that's fit to print. And if I sound a little, charged, it's because I'm more than a little charged right now. And I've spared you a lot of the ins and outs of all the way this stuff is played out. And I'll give you a little example. So the MRI, originally the MRI was scheduled for yesterday. I tried to get it pushed up. I was on the waiting list all last weekend. Sunday afternoon, I get a call that there's room for me on Monday. So I go to the thing at 11 o'clock, and with their questionnaire, it said that, the second question was, have you ever had any metal slivers in your eye? Third question, have you ever worked with metal? Okay. I used to, back in 1985, I worked for Harvard. The American Repertory Theater's production of of Civil Wars, Robert Wilson's Civil Wars, and I left that production in a taxi cab, go on the way to the Mass Eye and Ear emergency room because I'd gotten a sliver of metal on my cornea, and they were able to extract it and sand down the cornea and put a patch on me, and within 3 days I was fine. But you can't have an MRI. You cannot go near that magnet if they can't be sure or haven't seen that there's no slivers or it's not going to impact. They don't want to blind you, basically. So that meant that not only was I not going to get that MRI, but I was going to have to go get my eyes x-rayed so that they could confirm that I was a viable candidate. So after firing my oncologist, I went and had my eyes x-rayed, which I don't know if you've ever had x-rays in the eye, man, but I'm still feeling it, got to tell you. Anyway, good news is I can have an MRI. I'm cool, and they set it for Saturday. They set it for Tuesday, and still gonna see if I can get it done any sooner. But so that's one of the noodles of this whole thing. It's just too much. So anyway, that's what's up. So mirth is my medicine. Amusement and humor is always an option. And we love you.